guys, and welcome back to the OQLIS YouTube channel. Today we will be exploring SanKey diagrams. A SanKey diagram is a type of flowchart in which the proportion of various categories are shown in relation to each other. So essentially, a SanKey diagram is displaying a large set of data in a visually appealing way for ease of understanding and legibility, giving you a snapshot of your dataset without having to scroll through rows and rows of data in search of answers. Take a look at this SanKey diagram to help you visualize the concept better. So you might be wondering, when would you want to use a SanKey diagram in your business? Well, SanKey diagrams are a great tool to use when you're trying to visualize data that has tiers or levels. A good example could be that you want to monitor cash flow through different departments within your business to identify possible problem areas and manage your budget better. Another example to note is that you may be wanting to analyze the population of a country split by gender and region to identify if that country is a good fit for your business. But for the purpose of today's discussion, we will be comparing the GDP composition of two countries. So let's begin. If we have a look at the data set, you can see that there's lots of numbers and words. And bear in mind that this is just a preview, so it's only showing 10 rows. In reality, this could be millions of rows, and in this format, we gain little to no insight. However, we can also see that there are three distinct categories, namely country, sector, and component, and these correspond to a GDP column. This makes it perfect for a SanKey diagram as our data has tiers, as multiple components fit in one sector and multiple sectors fit in one country. So let's visualize this. We can start by heading over to the Explore tab. Then you're going to want to select the correct data model. So my data model is called SanKey data. We'll scroll down to that here. And then the first thing you want to do is determine what you want to measure. So in our case, we want to measure GDP. So I'm going to put GDP in our measure field, and I'm going to leave this as sum since we want the total GDP per country. The next thing we're going to do is group by something. So as I said before, multiple components fit in one sector and multiple sectors fit in one country. So I'm going to group by country first since it's the biggest group and it encompasses the data in its entirety. And already as a bar chart, we can see that we've gained more insight than when we were just looking at the raw data. Because now we can see that USA has a much bigger GDP than China. And I'll explain why I haven't shown it as a SanKey shortly. But first, let's group by sector as well. So now we can select it as a SanKey. And now hopefully you can see why I didn't display it as a SanKey initially, because when we only had our country category grouping our data, we wouldn't have had anything for these bands to connect to, as we wouldn't have had another group on this side here. But as you can see, we're already gaining even more insight than we had with the bar chart. We can see that the services sector in USA is much bigger than the services sector in China, and the industry sector in China is much bigger than the industry sector in USA. And they both have relatively small agricultural sectors. So let's build on this and let's add components as well. And now we're really gaining some valuable information from our data. We would never have been able to tell this just from looking at the raw data, but now we can see where each sector gets its share of the GDP, and we can see that manufacturing is quite a big sector, financial is relatively big, government is relatively big, but agricultural, mining, hunting is tiny. It's so small we can't even see it. Fishing is also tiny, forestry is tiny, but you see these are all things we would never have been able to tell just from looking at the data in its tabular format. So you may be wondering now, what if you wanted to see these components in relation to the countries and not in relation to the sectors? So then we would just change the order. We would put components in the middle and we rerun this. and now we have an entirely new SanKey diagram which would be used for a different purpose. So this would then show the spread of these components from each country and then into each sector as well. But now what if we only wanted to see USA or only wanted to see China? So we can do that as follows. Let me just change it back to how it was. We will add a filter here. We'll choose equal to and say USA. And now our SanKey diagram is showing all the data that relates to USA only. There's nothing here from China. So this is how we could make a more specific SanKey. We could do the same thing for services and the same thing for components, but I'm not going to do that, as that would just essentially, if we did it for one component, we would have almost one straight line or one straight ribbon. Lastly, if you want to customize your SanKey, you can head over to the settings here and choose a color palette. I created a color palette called SanKey, but if none of these color palettes work for you, you can always head over to settings down here and click on themes and add new, and then you would obviously then create your own color theme or color palette that would show up in this drop down for you to select. Okay, so that's all for today. If you enjoyed learning new tips and tricks to use in our solutions, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will update you when we release a new Explore Help video to give you access to the latest features and capabilities. OQLIS, we empower you to make impactful decisions for positive change.